Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope everyone is still healthy and happy always. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Didarut Gunmars, the head of the Parasitology Department, Faculty of Medicine, Konkang University, for the invitation. So today I can attend this extraordinary meeting, international conference today. Also, I want to thanks to Professor Martnip and all the organizing committee who have facilitated me so that I can present and to share information about the recent update on vector control and insecticide resistance of mosquitoes in Indonesia. Okay, I will start with the outline that I want to speak here. Introduction, vector and vector-borne disease in Indonesia, vector control, and resistance status. Okay. Okay, as you know that Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country in the world with more than 70,500 islands scattered in tropical bed between Pacific and Indian Ocean. Yeah, and between ASEAN and Australian continent. So you can see here, this is ASEAN, and this is in the east part is Australian continent. And we have 34 provinces, and we have also 514 district municipalities in Indonesia. And our our population also is very high. We have 270,000 million. We had 270,000 million people in Indonesia. So you can imagine we are very big, very huge, and also many people in Indonesia. Okay, the influence of geographical location making Indonesia is known as one of the countries that have the highest biodiversity or the second mega diversity, maybe in the world, endowed with a rich and unique biodiversity fauna, including vectors and vector-borne diseases. You know, in Indonesia, we have vector-borne disease. Actually, we have 3 types of vector-borne disease: tick-borne disease, mosquito-borne disease, and other insect-borne. In tick-borne disease, usually is very common in animals and in livestock. So we have babesiosis, we have anaplasmosis, theileriosis, ehrlichiosis, and other tick-borne disease. But we don't have human ehrlichiosis. Yeah, we don't have. And also other insect-borne, we have trypanosomiasis, Sura, typhoid fever, enteric bacteria, typhus, plague, and Chuchugamusi disease. But today I want to focus on mosquito-borne disease. We have many kind of mosquito-borne disease, but the first one is malaria, and the second one dengue and chikungunya, Zika. Zika is very small actually. Filariasis, yeah, we have also, and enterovillariasis in dog here, and Japanese encephalitis. But now I want to focus on human mosquito-borne disease. First, I want to show you the endemicity of malaria in Indonesia. So yeah, you can see here, Indonesia have various level endemicity. So it requires different approach according to the level of endemicity. You can see here in the map, we have 4 types of endemicity. In the white one is only 62%, yeah, so has been eliminated in Indonesia. And the green one is low endemicity, and the yellow one is medium endemicity, and the highest endemicity actually only 5% in 24 district. Yeah, 24 district. I mean 5% of 514 districts that are in Indonesia. So actually, malaria is focused in eastern part of Indonesia, in Papua and Halmahera here. Yeah, this is the high endemicity. But in the here also there is three types of endemicity. There's green, yellow, and also green and yellow, and also a red one. Indonesia also rich of mosquitoes. We have around 450 species of mosquito. 80 species of them are anopheles, and among them only 25 species are factors of malaria. So factors of malaria in Indonesia distributed in different area, also different factors. So it's why it's difficult to do factor control, because we have to understand the bioecology of each mosquito. This is the second vector-borne disease that's very highly in Indonesia, very endemic in Indonesia, dengue, hemorrhagic fever, or now we call dengue fever. Yeah. Dengue fever also reported in 34 provinces of Indonesia. So you can imagine, so in all of the provinces in Indonesia, we have dengue reported. Yeah, but the endemicity or the endemicity of each area is different. We can also see the green one. In green one area is it means only reported cases of dengue, no death or mortality case reported. Here the red one, yeah, the red one is very usually focused in big city such as Java Island, yeah, Central Java, West Java, and also East Java, and also in Bali, Lombok. And eastern part of Sumatra, also very high cases of dengue. And you can see here we have 10 provinces that are very highest dengue cases in Indonesia. And dengue vectors in Indonesia actually two species. One is Aedes aegypti, and the second one is Aedes albopictus. You can differentiate between two species, yeah, as you see in this figure. This is Aedes aegypti. Yeah, it's very common, usually like the breeding places is very common in inside of the house, indoor, and Aedes albopictus usually outdoor habitat. Yeah. But the two of species are vectors of dengue. This is the third vector-borne disease in Indonesia, is lymphatic filariasis. And the lymphatic filariasis also distributed in almost of the island in Indonesia. You can see here. And the most cases was found in the eastern part, like Papua here, yeah, Papua here. And also in Jawa, in Sumatra, in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, on Halmahera, also we found many cases of filariasis. In 2020, chronic cases of filariasis in Indonesia were recorded in 10,000 of 7,500 people, spread over 34 provinces in Indonesia. This is the distribution of the cause of filariasis in Indonesia. So we have three species of filaria that affected in Indonesian people. One is the Brugia malayi here, the purple one here. This is Brugia malayi distribution. So distribution of Brugia malayi in Sumatra, in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, and also in Halmahera and in Maluku Island. And we have also Wuchereria bancrofti that spread in Java Island, here in Java Island, and Bali and Lombok also, and also in Papua. Yeah, all of the Papua usually infected by Wuchereria bancrofti. And then we have special filaria that distributed only in that area in Timor, yeah, in East Nusa Tenggara. In East Nusa Tenggara, we call it Brugia timori. In that area, we have two species of filariasis, yeah, Brugia timori and also Wuchereria bancrofti. Yeah. So this is the distribution of the filarias, helminth filariasis. And how about the factors? Indonesian have recorded about 22 species of mosquito confirmed as factor of filariasis in Indonesia. Yeah, and every area also they have different mosquito species. Yeah, so yeah, it's very complex in Indonesia. Yeah, factor complex. Okay, and this is the last factor of bone disease that I want to tell you. The fourth one is Japanese encephalitis. Yeah, as you know, the Japanese encephalitis is distributed as only in that area, as you can see in the map. Yeah, this is the Japanese encephalitis risk area, and in Indonesia, the Japanese encephalitis virus was first documented in Lombok in 1960. And the virus was first isolated in 1972 from the mosquito of Culex tritianurincus in Bekasi, West Java, and also in Kapuk, Jakarta. Since then, Indonesia has been recognized as an endemic country for Japanese transmission. Up to now, Japanese cases have been found in at least 29 provinces, with Bali, West Kalimantan, East Nusa Tenggara, West Java, and East Java being the areas of the highest incidence of Japanese encephalitis. Indonesia, according Uche and Sachidanandam to 2001, Indonesia is very unique because in this region is the only area where all Japanese encephalitis genotype were found. Yeah. So as you see in this map, in Indonesia, we can found a genotype 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah. So different than in other areas. Okay. This is the factors of Japanese encephalitis in Indonesia. We have confirmed that the factor of Japanese encephalitis in Indonesia around 10 species. But the main factor is Culex tritianurincus. As you see in the figure here, Culex tritianurincus is very common around the livestock farm. Yeah, so it's zoophilic and zoophagic, and the breeding places also near the paddy field and also stagnant water near the house or near the farm. So this is very common. And also the second one is Culex vishnui and Culex pseudovishnui, Culex gelidus, Culex quinquefasciatus, of course. This is a common mosquito, house mosquito, and also Armigerus subbalbatus. So Armigerus subbalbatus also was reported as a factor of Japanese encephalitis in Central Java. Okay, here the concept of factor-borne disease. So if you see the figure here, information on bioecology factor and reservoir is very important. is a basic knowledge to understand the comprehension of disease epidemiology and also comprehension of critical point in life cycle of factor and reservoir. So by understanding the bioecology of factors, so we can understand not only epidemiology, also we can find the critical point of the factors. So by this information, we can make the strategy of disease control and also, of course, operationalization. And as you know, maybe all of the factor control philosophy here, we follow the factor control philosophy in the factor control operational. So as you know that the pest population of factors is impossible to be eradicated. So it's impossible. Yeah. So we can only reduce the population rates in certain threshold that not disturb, not making economic loss, and not harmful the people. So this is the factor control philosophy that we follow in almost of the Indonesian government also. So not treated by schedule, but treated by necessity. So when the population is very high and there is outbreak, for example, with there is outbreak of dengue, so we have to use insecticide. And also our government, especially Minister of Health, we have Minister of Health Regulation number 50, 2017. We have to applicate the integrated factor control. So what is the IVM or integrated factor control management mean? We have to use utilization of all existing techniques in one integrated program to control factor population so that factors do not cause harm while side effects of the environment are kept to a minimum. So it means we use a combination, for example, environmental management, physical management, biological method, chemical methods, yeah. But the target of factor control is to reduce human factor contact and reduce factor density and increase other factor mortality. Okay. So this is, I want to show you the environmental management that we have been applicated in our country. Most of the region must have the good water management, for example, irrigation in the paddy field areas. So by a good irrigation, here we can reduce the breeding places of several mosquitoes, such as malaria factor or Japanese encephalitis factors. And also geoprophylaxis. Yeah, geoprophylaxis mean we use animal to devote biting, yeah, so from human, yeah. So by putting the animal in backyard or in backyard of the house, so we can prevent the factor of malaria come to our house. So I think geoprophylaxis is already used in most of the countries in the world, and also become one of the part of factor integrated factor management. Here we can see the environmental management also. Cleaning of the aquatic plants and vegetation, usually in the coastal areas that breeding places for malaria factors. So you can, maybe larvae of malaria factors are protected by aquatic vegetation and floating object near the surface here. So by cleaning the vegetation here, so the larva will die and the population of the larva mosquito will reduce. So this is have been practiced in southern part of Java, and the result is can reduce the population of people there from malaria. And this is also one of the example malaria vector control activities, especially also in coastal area here in eastern part of Indonesia, in Kurunga village in Joronga Island in district and Halmahera Selatan. So Halmahera Selatan is malaria endemic area with high endemic. And you know, the area is usually many stagnant water near the houses. So by filling the stagnant water with soil, and so now after intervention, the cases of malaria getting reduced. Here also the environmental management. So in the village, in another village also that has been reported in also in eastern part of Indonesia. So usually in coastal area there are many breeding places during the water when the water from the sea come to the inland area and then become stagnant water here, and here is the breeding places of Anopheles sudaicus, Anopheles subpictus. But people there now already understand when malaria, when the condition is like this, so the malaria cases will be higher. So they will work each other together to make irrigation like this and to drain the water come to the sea. And this is the local knowledge that always be done by the people in the coastal area, usually in malaria endemic area. Environmental management also including health education and community involvement. Yeah, so actually our government always doing rising awareness of vector-borne disease at the national and community level. So community can do by themselves to detect the vector or breeding places of to reduce the population of vector in that area. So collaboration with multi-sectors and private sectors also have been done, although it's already hardly to do. Yeah, it's hardly to do, but we have tried to do the multi-sector and private sectors. Yeah, this is this figure shows the community participation people and also inhabitants who live in the, for example, this is for reducing the factor of dengue here. So we involve community and also school student participation here. So MICDAM dengue is everyone concerned. So every segment must become involved and accept the appropriate responsibility. Yeah, so and as we know, we have always explained to the people that mosquito vectors are present primarily because of improper management of water reservoirs by the people. So by checking regularly in their house, yeah, to see whether there is a larvae of Aedes or not. So I think it's very good to reduce the population of dengue vector. Okay, this is the part of integrated management also. The third one is biological control. So historically, biological control is utilized predatory species and pathogenic microorganisms to reduce the population of mosquitoes as disease vectors. Yeah. So predatory organism for mosquito larvae include several species of larvivorous fish, for example, Gambusia, Gambusia affinis, Phacelia, tilapia, and other fishes, and copepods, dragonfly nymphs, frog tadpole, Toxarinhites larvae also belong to the predator, and we group in biological control. And organisms that produce toxin include Bacillus thuringiensis, israelensis, Bacillus sphaericus, bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi, and other organisms also one of the part of the biological control. But usually that people have done, or in Indonesia also we can find Bacillus thuringiensis and also Bacillus sphaericus, so everybody can buy in a drugstore. Yeah, they can use, and also in pest control also they use some Bacillus thuringiensis and Bacillus sphaericus. So it's already commercialized. And here I want to show you bacteria Wolbachia. Bacteria Wolbachia also has been introduced in one part of Indonesian areas, especially in Yogyakarta. Yeah, in Yogyakarta. So Wolbachia actually is extremely common bacteria that occurs naturally in 60% of insect species, including some mosquito, fruit flies, moth, dragonflies, and butterflies. So what we know that Wolbachia, here there is one mechanism. One is cytoplasmic incompatibility. Cytoplasmic incompatibility means that when male host, for example, other insect, infected with Wolbachia mates with female with an uninfected female, so no offspring are produced, and all other mating are fully compatible and result in the production of offspring. So the consequence of this system is that the maternally transmitted Wolbachia tend to spread through the host species. This knowledge has been, I think, has been known for everybody here, and in Indonesia has been applied, especially in Yogyakarta, and has been published also in the New England Journal of Medicine. The efficacy of Wolbachia infected mosquito deployment for the control of dengue in Jogja. And what we have now here, the protective efficacy of intervention was 77.1%. Yeah, so Wolbachia in Egypt, Wolbachia that had been Wolbachia infected in Aedes aegypti population was effective in reducing the incidence of symptomatic dengue and resulted in fewer hospitalization for dengue among the participants. This have been recorded, and maybe in the future will be used also as one after alternative factor control in Indonesia. But this only in Yogyakarta that have been researched from 2011 to 2020. Okay, now we go to the chemical method. Yeah, chemical methods is the use of insecticides. Also, we always think the use of insecticide is only one alternative. Why? Because insecticide can solve the problem immediately, but only temporarily, not long term. And also we have to know that insecticide effective, practical, easy to use, easy to do, and relatively cheap or affordable. Insecticides are harmless as long as they are used according to the instruction. So be careful and not excessive, just as necessary. So if we do like this, so I think using chemical method is okay. And as you know, that Indonesia, we have several types of family or group of insecticide that have been used in Indonesia. For example, yeah, organophosphate, for example, malathion and temefos, and carbamat, for example, bendiocab. And the most useful in Indonesia is pyrethroid group. Yeah, for example, alpha-cypermethrin, diatamethrin, panmethrin, yeah, lambda-cyhalothrin, transglutamin, methylpurine, etc. There are many kinds of pyrethroid group. And also insect growth regulator, yeah, for example, metopren, pyriproxyfen, also have been used in Indonesia. So when to use insecticides, so depend on the situation or condition. So if there is an outbreak, we call it emergency. So the population at the time, population of vector is very high. So how to approach is we use insecticide and all other ways. But if the condition is controlled, under control, for example, or population is medium, so we can use exclusion, environment sanitation, and insecticide when it's necessary. So when we do not need insecticide, we do not use. So depend on the condition. And when the situation is ordinary or low level population, so we do not use insecticides. So we can use environment sanitation and only exclusion. So this is the how to use the insecticide in Indonesia. So this is how pesticide in integrated vector control. So when the population is high, we use insecticide. Yeah. When the population is low, or non-insecticide methods will be used. And when the population is high again, so we can use insecticide. So we have to do surveillance, yeah, surveillance. By doing surveillance, so we can make the graph like this. Yeah. Okay. Now I want to talk about the insecticide resistance. Yeah. Insecticide resistance is the ability of vectors of pests to withstand a dose of insecticide, which is usually, in general, considered effective for controlling the vector of pest. And insecticide resistance is defined also by the Insecticide Resistance Action Committee, IRAC, yeah, as a heritable change in the sensitivity of pest population that is reflected in the repeated failure of product to achieve the expected level of control when used according to the label recommendation for that pest. So I think it's almost the same. Yeah, the definition is almost the same. So pesticide resistance can become a problem. Yeah, can become problem. Why? When the same chemical are used over and over to control a particular pest or particular factor. So after a period, the pest may develop resistance to chemicals so that the chemical no longer effectively controls the pest or the factor at the same rate. And higher rates and more frequent application become necessary until eventually the chemical provide little or no control. So this is the impact of the insecticide resistance. So this is the mechanism how insecticide resistance is happened. Yeah. So as you know, and naturally, yeah, in nature, usually they have a small portion of the population that have gain resistant here, the red one. Yeah, the red one. So in the population, actually they have like this, yeah. Only one from 100,000 individual. There is one with genetic with resistant mosquito, for example, here. So when exposure by insecticides, so you can see the survivor here. Survivor, for example, this is two. Survivor will the resistance still there because they can die, and they will reproduce. And by reproduce like this, so the resistance increasing, as you can see here. So the number of the red one become more, yeah. And further exposure to the same class of insecticide, the same class, yeah, not the different class, but the same class of insecticide. So we can see here the survivor only small, and starting from this point, we can see that the population will dominated by the red one, by the resistant one. So you can see in the population, the resistance is common. Yeah, only maybe 80%. Yeah, 80% population was resistant. And if we do the same exposure to the same class of insecticide to the population, also the majority of population will resistant. So 90% of population will resistant. So if the condition like this, so we call it resistance. So resistance occurs due to the selection to insecticide exposure to the vector species. The process of occurrence of resistance can take place quickly, slowly, or slowly in the size of man 2 years. So every species usually is different. And resistance occurs naturally, namely when the genetic mutation allows a small portion of the population, less than 1 in 100,000 individual, to be able to withstand the insecticide. So insect with genotype here, yeah, with allele RR small here, will reproduce and increase the proportion of resistant factors in the population. So this is the theory of insecticide resistance, and I think all of you guys already know. Okay, and how about the Indonesian condition of resistance? So actually, in Indonesia, reports have confirmed pyrethroid resistance in Aedes population in several areas. Yeah. And against several types of insecticide in malaria vectors. Yeah. However, data is not overall because of the capacity in medical entomology is inadequate. Also, the surveillance for insecticide resistance is not sustainable. So we cannot present the current situation of the resistant status of factors to insecticide. And also we of course in Indonesia we have some institution in Indonesia have the capacity for molecular studies and resistance mechanism, and some of the result of the work also have been published in several journal, international and also in international journal. But most of them were published in national journal. Yeah, of course, in international journal also there is. Okay, I think that is the our presentation. So this is our challenge. Yeah, this is our challenge. So as you know, Indonesia is very big country, and vector-borne disease is a paradise. Yeah, so we have many kinds of vector-borne disease in Indonesia. And also lack of human resources for surveillance, prevention, and control of vector-borne disease. Yeah, of course we have, but yeah, I think if we compare with our big country, so still not enough. Yeah, so we need a lot of human resources. And also development of insecticide resistance in some vectors also have been reported. also the data is not comprehensive. Data is scattered in some of areas and published in several journal of scientific journal in national or in international. And as you know, entomologists in Indonesia is very low. Yeah, but now we try to do make a movement. So I want everybody going to be entomologists. So yeah, now it's very low. Yeah, and multi-sector approach is difficult to implement. Yeah, I think not only Indonesia but in other country also similar. And many studies have not been fully completed. I think that is all that I can present to this conference. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will stop share. So if any question, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for a very impressive talk. We are now in the Q&A session. If you have any question or would like to share your experience, please feel free to share with our international participant here. And again, the question in the chat box is also welcome. Okay, so we have one question in the chat box. Is there are many species of mosquitoes in Indonesia? Doesn't it relate with the severities of the diseases?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have many species factor, but usually it's very specific. Yeah, for example, Anopheles mostly a factor of malaria in Indonesia, and for factor of dengue, hemorrhagic fever, usually Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. And for filariasis, we have many species of factors. Yeah, so not only Aedes, not only Anopheles, but also another genus species of Mansonia and Culex quinquefasciatus, or many species of Culex, many species of Mansonia, and can be a factor of filariasis. But for malaria, is specifically usually transmitted by Anopheles. And in Indonesia, we have already confirmed there are 26 species of vector of malaria in every areas. For example, in coastal areas in Sumatra, coastal areas in Papua is different. Yeah, coastal areas in Papua usually the vectors are Anopheles farauti. But in Jawa, in Kalimantan, in Sumatra, usually vector in coastal area are Anopheles subictus and also Anopheles sundaicus. So I think that's the example of vector in Indonesia. I hope any other question?
Thank you, Professor. As we run out a bit behind schedule, anyone have the questions? Professor Wu, please.
Still mute. Unmute, please.
Professor, still mute.
I have a question. In Indonesia, there are many islands, and the area relatively isolated. In different places, whether resistance is different or not. If different, why?
Yeah, actually, Indonesia geographic area in Indonesia, especially for mosquito, we influenced by two different influence geographic area. So, for example, in Sumatra, in Sumatra and Kalimantan, in the western part of Sulawesi. So almost the species of mosquito are similar with the ASEAN Oriental region. Yeah, and in the eastern part of Indonesia, for example, Halmahera, and then Nusa Tenggara, and then also Papua, usually was influenced by the Australian region. So why we can understand that in that, for example, in Papua, we can find many species of Parauti, Anopheles parauti, Anopheles bancrofti, Anopheles coliensis, and Anopheles punctulatus that originally come from Australian region. Yeah, and and we have also specific area in Walasean area in Sulawesi, in Sulawesi, or Celebes in Sulawesi. Also, we have many species of endemic areas in that area. So I think not only for mosquito, but also for other microorganisms, for example, helminth, also protozoa, also may be different. And of course, for animals, also different in specific area, usually in Sulawesi. So we have three kinds of type of areas of geographic area in Indonesia. So what have you answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prof.